Hi guys, I'm going to show you how to write the equations of parallel and perpendicular lines in this video. There's a few common mistakes that students make when doing this, and so I'll point those out and we will not make those same mistakes. So number one, we're going to write the equation of the line that's parallel to 8x minus 2y equals 24, but our line is going to pass through the point 317. So to get started, the first thing to remember is that parallel lines have the same slope because they run in the same direction as each other. So the first thing to make this easier would be to take the equation of the line that they gave you and get it so that y is alone. So 8x minus 2y equals 24. I'm first going to subtract 8x from both sides. So then negative 2y equals negative 8x plus 24. Alright, so then just divide everything by negative 2. Just write it separately so that you don't forget that everything is divided. So that gives us y equals, that will be positive 4x, and then minus 12. So now what's important about this line that we rewrote is its slope. So the slope of this line is 4, and we are going to use that as the slope in the equation that we're writing. So slope is 4, so use this to write our equation. Now, a lot of students just circle this answer and think that they're done, but the problem is that we need our line to pass through the point 3, 17. Now, the form that I like to use is point slope form, which is y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1, because it's super easy to plug into, and even if your teacher wants you to write it in slope-intercept form, you can still do that. You just have to change it at the very end so that y is alone. So what we're going to do is plug in everything we can into this equation. The m is 4. We just figured that out. That's the slope. The x1 is the x from our point that it has to pass through, so that's going to be 3. And then the y, not that y, sorry about that, the y1 is going to be the 17 from the point that we're plugging in. So just plug those numbers in. Y minus 17 equals 4 times x minus 3. And if it's okay to leave your answer in point slope form, just circle this. But if you have to change it into slope intercept form, then we're going to do this. Y minus 17, distribute the 4, so that equals 4x minus 12, and then just add 17 to both sides so that y is alone. So y equals 4x and then plus 5. And that would be the answer if you need to have it in slope-intercept form. So I'll just label that. Okay, so that's an example of writing a line that's parallel to another line. Now, example 2, we're writing the equation of a line that's perpendicular to a line that they give us, which is this line here, and it has to pass through this point, the line that we're writing. So again, we're going to get y alone in this equation so that we can see what slope it has. So 10x minus 4y equals 24. So just subtract 10x from both sides. Negative 4y equals, and let's write it with x first, so negative 10x plus 24. And then divide both sides, everything, by negative 4. Alright, so I get y, and then this reduces to positive 5/2 x minus 6. Okay, now we have to be perpendicular to this line. So since its slope is 5/2. What this tells us is the perpendicular slope is the opposite reciprocal of that number. So the perpendicular slope will have to equal, put the 2 on top of the 5, so that's the reciprocal part, and then 5/2 was positive, so we make our number negative. So our perpendicular slope will be -2/5, and this will be the m that we use when we plug into point slope form. And it has to pass through this point, and this is our x, and this is our y of that point. So we're just going to plug into this again. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. And actually, if it helps you with labeling, the point that they gave you, you could call it x1, y1, because that's where we're going to plug in those numbers. So plugging in, my y1 is going to be the 8. The m is the perpendicular slope that we calculated, which is -2/5, and x1 is going to be the 5 from the point. So we'll just plug those numbers in. Y minus 8 equals -2/5 times x minus 5. And that's your answer if they want point slope form. So that would be the point slope answer. But we can just get y alone again if you need it to be in slope intercept form. So I'll distribute, so I have y minus 8. I'll distribute the -2/5, so -2/5 x. And you can do this to the side if you need to write it down, but -2/5 times -5 would be +10/5, which is the same as +2. And then the final step is to add 8 to both sides. So let's just bring this over here. That'll give us y equals -2/5 x plus 10. And then this is our answer if you need it to be in slope-intercept form. So I'll just label that slope-intercept form. Okay, now the final thing down here is writing the equation of a line that passes through, and the point I gave is 4, -6, and is A, parallel to y equals 3, and part B, perpendicular to y equals 3. Well, it kind of helps to think of a graph when you're doing this kind of problem. Y equals 3 doesn't have an x in it. And so if we go to y equals 3, which would be right here, this is the equation of a line that runs horizontal, because all along that line, like no matter where I would draw a point, the y coordinate is always 3. And that's what y equals 3 is telling us. So this is the equation of a horizontal line. So if we're writing a line that's parallel to that, it will also be horizontal. So that tells me right away that the equation will be y equals something, because that's how you write a horizontal line. And the y, if you remember, they gave us a point. Here's our point. The y was -6. So really, that's just the answer. So if you see a question asking parallel to y equals 3, the answer will be y equals, and then whatever the y was, the y coordinate was. Now in part B, it says to write an equation that's perpendicular to the same line, to y equals 3. Well, perpendicular is going to have to go vertically, and it's going to have to pass through the point 4, -6. Might help to see the point. So here's the point 4, -6 down here. So that means the line has to look like this. Oops. Like that. So that makes it perpendicular. Well, it's as simple as just knowing that if it's perpendicular to y equals 3, it's going to be x equals, and then you just write down the x coordinate. So it's x equals 4. So if it's perpendicular to a horizontal line, then it has to be vertical. Okay, and vertical lines are always x equals a number. Okay, in this case it ended up being x equals 4. And if I just jot down over here, horizontal lines are always y equals just a number. And those are two special cases that are important to know how to do because they do ask those all the time. I hope that helps.